All right, let's get right into it. If you're an RF technician, you already know that spotting a hostile signal in a crowded spectrum is probably one of the most critical skills you can have. Today, we're going to break down how you do just that, how you spot deliberate radio jamming and turn a simple suspicion into rock-solid evidence. Okay, but before we dive in, we've got to be absolutely clear about something. This is part 2 of a 20-part tutorial. It's all based on a fantastic report called An Introduction to Radio Jamming and How to Identify from the Experts at RFI Detectives. Now, everything we're talking about here is strictly for educational purposes, to help you mitigate interference. Remember, using radio jamming equipment is illegal almost everywhere, and the penalties are no joke. Our job here is to give you, the RF technician, the tools to find, locate, and report these illegal signals, not to create them. You know, this question right here, this is really the heart of it all. When a system goes down, you're the one on the ground who has to figure it out. Are you dealing with a simple broken part, or are you standing in the middle of a federal crime in progress? The stakes couldn't be higher. So to answer that question, you've first got to master the art of telling the difference between a simple signal and actual sabotage. It's the absolute foundation of any interference hunt, and it all starts with a very clear definition. And here it is, the official definition. Radio jamming is the deliberate transmission of electromagnetic energy. That word, deliberate, is everything. This isn't some accident. It's an intentional act. It has one specific goal: to mess with or completely shut down a targeted communication system. This really lays out the challenge perfectly. On one side, you have jamming. It's purposeful, it's hostile. On the other, you've got unintentional noise, maybe from some leaky equipment nearby. One is an attack, the other is just an annoyance. And your first job, the most important one, is to know exactly which one you're looking at. And the reason that distinction is so incredibly important is that it immediately throws us into the world of laws and regulations. See, identifying jamming isn't just a technical puzzle to solve. It's the very first step in a legal process that has some really serious consequences. And this isn't some new, obscure rule we're talking about. The law here is well established. As the report points out, rules like Section 333 of the Communications Act have been on the books for a very long time. And the language is crystal clear. Operating a jammer is strictly prohibited. And the penalties, they are severe. Take a look at that number, $16,000. That's the maximum civil penalty. But here's the real kicker. That's per violation per day. You can imagine how fast that can turn into a life-altering amount of money. But it's not just about the money, not by a long shot. On top of those massive fines and getting all your equipment confiscated, a criminal referral can lead to this, up to 1 year behind bars. This is what takes jamming from a simple nuisance and turns it into a serious crime. So let's make this perfectly clear. There are zero civilian exceptions. It doesn't matter if somebody says they're using it for personal privacy or to keep a drone out of their backyard. Their intent is totally irrelevant. Unless you have very specific authorization, it is illegal. Full stop. Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why. Now let's get into the how, the part that you'll actually use out in the field. When you think you found a jammer, you don't just start wandering around. You start with a professional, step-by-step methodology. Right. The million-dollar question. And the answer isn't about having a gut feeling. It's about following a process. It all starts with a systematic survey of the radio spectrum so you can find hard, objective data. And this is the playbook. First, you connect a wideband antenna so you can see the whole picture. Then you set your reference level about 10 decibels above the normal noise floor. Why? So that anything out of the ordinary will literally jump off the screen. Then you sweep the problem frequencies, and this is so important. You compare what you're seeing right now against your baseline recordings. You have to know what normal looks like to spot what's abnormal. Anything that shouldn't be there, you note it. But spotting that weird signal is really just the beginning. The next step is arguably the most important one. You have to turn that observation, that little blip on your screen, into concrete, actionable data that can actually be used for analysis and reporting. So think of this as your evidence checklist. You're hunting for carriers that don't belong, a noise floor that's suddenly way too high, or just bizarre signal patterns. But just seeing it isn't enough. You have to capture high-res screenshots and, for the deep dive, the raw IQ data. That raw data is basically the jammer's digital fingerprint. It's everything. When it comes down to it, it's this disciplined process. the one laid out by experts like RFI detectives that transforms what you see in the field into undeniable proof. Those screenshots and that IQ data, that's the backbone of your professional report. It's the hard evidence you need. So let's zoom out for a second, because what you're doing is bigger than just fixing one problem at one site. When you correctly identify and report illegal jamming, you are playing a huge role in protecting the entire radio spectrum for all of us.
Seriously, never underestimate how important your job is. GPS, cell phones, emergency services, our entire world runs on a clean, reliable wireless spectrum. And your skills, you are the first line of defense that keeps all of it working.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. The tech used for jamming is always changing, always getting more sophisticated. So the big question you have to ask yourself is this: are my skills and is my equipment evolving just as fast? Are you ready for what's coming next?